On today's episode, Mike and Ryan discuss legends and tales of beer and brewing. Cheers. Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Brewthers-In-Law podcast, where beer is thicker than water. Join us on a journey discovering home brewing, craft beer, and more. I'm Mike, and with me as always is my brother-in-law Ryan. What's up?
What's up?
What's up? Here we are in your basement. Kitty sunning himself in the window. Everything is as it should be.
And had a few beers so far already, so...
Yes, but, you know, they've been tasters. Tasters don't count.
Not this one I have right now.
So, today, I'm really excited about this episode. We are going to be discussing legends, myths, tales related to beer and brewing and alcohol. It should be a really fun episode. Mm-hmm. So, for the first sip, I took the easy way out.
Yeah, you did.
But I think it's still going to be a fun question. So, I would like you to just tell me about, one, if it's fast, maybe two, a non-beer related legend or urban legend or tale or myth that you really like. Or that's like very personal to you or whatever.
Well, you know how I am, because we talked about this on a different, I think, kind of first sip where we talked about a weird thing that you believe.
Oh, yeah.
And I know I got the eye roll from you, and I'm pretty sure my wife, who could barely hear us, could eye rolled as well when I talked about aliens and Bigfoot. But I am going to stand with this, and my wife kind of agrees. This has changed since then. So I'm going to say my urban legend is a apex predator within the northwest part of our country, also known as Bigfoot or Sasquatch. I'm going to stick with it. And the reason I actually stick with this and got Mal to agree a little bit to it, we watched this, I'm going to do real quick, a documentary called 411, which is like missing people out in national parks. And apparently there's a lot of them that happen. And there was one for hunters that have disappeared. And there's this group of guys who hunted off in California. They had made this like kind of makeshift campsite they went to every single year until they got caught and told not to do it anymore. But there was one year they went out and they ended up barricading themselves in their little makeshift hut between these giant redwoods because they heard these noises. They recorded the noises and couldn't figure out what it was. They took the recording to a specialist, couldn't figure out what it was, and everything else. And Mal was like, okay, you have more legs to stand on now.
Nice.
So that is my urban legend. I will say, keep it simple, is Bigfoot.
That's interesting. So that actually kind of reminds...
That's on Hulu, so I'm going to advertise a little bit. So if you want to watch it, Hulu. It was nice. It was a nice watch.
We advertise, yeah. We often end up advertising a little bit.
With no money to show for it.
Yeah. Can't help it. We like what we like, yeah. So mine, so this is kind of like a funny personal one, but you remember my friend Austin from college.
Yes.
So he lives in the like St. Joe Benton Harbor area, and there are a lot of these like neighborhoods right out on Lake Michigan that like Illinois people like will like come and I don't know summer there or whatever. They're kind of cottages. And he took me through. There's also a nuclear power plant over in that area.
Okay.
And so he took me and our other buddy to this place. There's like an urban legend over there called the Melon Heads, and basically the long and short of it is that like there was this nuclear accident that was hushed up, and like it's like pretty gruesome, so I guess content warning, but like basically like these people were like accidentally irradiated, and so they were like locked in a cabin, and the cabin was burned down or whatever in this like one part of the forest, and that like that's
how Resident Evil starts, for the record.
Is it? Yeah. Well, so basically that, like, so the whole thing is that they still kind of like haunt those woods, but it's like sort of a thing to do in high school there to like kind of drive through them, and like, dear God, what I have never been in such a creepy, unwelcoming, like the trees straight up like just do this weird wonky, like they just warble back and forth, like they just look sickly and messed up, and like there's no actual, I think, historical evidence that there was ever like a radiation leak or whatever. But man, when it's like the dead of night and you go drive there, and there's this whole thing where you're like supposed to park under this dinky little bridge and just turn the lights off for X amount of seconds, and like we did it, and like it was legitimately freaky.
I've had a few moments like that.
It was a really like, you know, I'm not really like a ghosts person, but like just being there, like doing it, it was like something that really stuck with me. It was a really kind of like spooky, hair tingling, you know, just like visceral experience. So
yeah, no, I had one experience like that. Long ago, this girl I was dating, we were at Michigan State. She was going to Michigan State at the time, and she was in Mayo Hall, which for those who went to Michigan State or know about Michigan State, it is a haunted residence hall. They actually do not let you go past a certain floor because I believe the story is someone that killed himself in there. And she was the floor right before you got cut off. She lofted her bed, and so you're literally like 6 inches from the ceiling. And I was like, I was hanging out there, went to bed and everything, and I'm trying to fall asleep, and all of a sudden you just hear scratching noises just above my face, 6 inches away. I'm just like, oh, this is how I die. I was waiting for the hand to come through and pull me up. I've seen enough horror movies. Yeah. That's how it happens.
I know it happens next.
So man. Yeah, no, that creepiness, I had like goosebumps and everything at that point. Now I know it's probably some animal or something like that, but like whatever.
Yeah, there's like a family of raccoons that live up.
Yes.
Yeah, but man, and it's
in that moment, so
yourself doesn't believe yourself in the dead of night. No. You know. All right. Well. Cool. So that was fun. I have a feeling there will be some tangents on this episode.
Yes, there are definitely going to be tangents.
That was a really fun little tidbit. Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, but we're going to save listener feedback for another episode.
Yes, we'll save them. I don't have it right now, so yeah, we'll save it for another time.
Okay. So with that, let's get into the main topic. So while I pass it over to you, why don't you talk a little bit? This was your suggestion. I'm very excited about it, but like, what gave you the idea to do this episode?
So actually, I give credit to my wife. I give credit to Mel. So she told me about one of the stories I'm actually going to say. She told me about this, and I was like, oh my God, that sounds like it sounds bad with what the story was, but it's amazing. Like that's related to homebrew and everything. Right. That's when I pitched the same story to you and say we need to look up stories and legends and everything else related to beer and brewing. That can be an episode. That's a great episode, and you were all for it. So I looked up a few more episodes. There were a few more legends. A few more legends, yes. Stories, legends passed down through the ages, different cultures, different religions, different mythologies. And I think you do too as well.
Yes, I do. And so we are going to do a total of 3 each, right?
I have 4, actually.
You have 4? You cheater. 4. Okay. Well, so that
I'll
means...
go first and I'll go last.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine.
Yeah, sorry, I got page 2.
oh boy, I've got a page 3, so don't get at me. But mine aren't paragraphs. Mine are bulleted lists.
I was a little lazier in that. So, all right, so I guess I go first then?
Go ahead and begin. I give you my blessing to begin.
Oh, thank you. All right, so my first story is an Egyptian myth or story through the Egyptian mythology, which talks about pretty much setting the world record for beers drank in a sitting or in a day, which is, in this story is 7,000, which completely eclipses the unofficial Guinness World Record, unofficial record by Andre the Giant, which was about...
Andre the Giant holds that record?
It's an unofficial record.
Does he really? That's fascinating.
So the 7,000 beats his record by 6,881.
7,000. How weak was Egyptian beer?
Well, it was consumed by a god. So give
a little fair enough. Yeah.
Okay. So the story is the Egyptian goddess of war, Sekhmet. She is a goddess that has the head of a lioness and can drink pretty much everybody under the table. She does have, probably because she drinks so much, a very uncontrollable rage.
Imagine that.
And can drink just about, and was originally sent forth by the sun god to destroy evildoers. So Ra sent her down to destroy all things evil. When she
Instead, she destroys kegs.
when she can no longer suppress that lust for blood, so that's all evildoers are gone, and she still wants to kill things.
Oh, man.
She conspires to slaughter all of humanity.
Uh-oh.
To stop her, Ra sent his high priest to whip up 7,000 jars of beer, mixed it with red ochre, and scattered them throughout the land. While Sekhmet was storming through Egypt, preparing for the massacre, she found all these barrels and containers of beer, thinking they were blood, guzzled every drop down, and once she had quenched her thirst, she drunkenly staggered away, unable to fulfill her plan. Thus, beer saved humanity.
Wow. First of all, that's incredible.
That is
Second of all,
an amazing
that
story.
sounded like the setup for a very long video game.
I know, right?
7,000 beers, and you must find them all.
That is a side quest no one wants to do.
Right.
Doug will do
That's
it.
like finding the 100 feathers in Assassin's Creed or whatever.
Yes.
That's a really cool story. I've
Yes.
never heard that myth before.
Yeah, I haven't either. I was looking up some stories
That's
and everything.
hilarious.
So that was.
I wonder if it would be just very poisonous for a mortal to drink beer with red ochre in it.
I mean, that's why she's a goddess. She can do it.
Yeah, I know, but now I'm just curious. I was like, would that work? Could we do that? Could I make this?
I'm the one that's supposed to make weird things. Come on.
Yeah. So you know what? While you were beginning, I remembered there was actually one that I cut in favor of another legend. So I'm going to do 4 too, if time permits. If time permits.
We'll have time.
So I guess we will do 2 each, then break.
Okay.
Probably.
Probably, yes.
Or we'll do
see.
3.
We'll see how we're
do
doing.
3 and see where we're at time-wise. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so my first one is from Greek mythology.
I love it.
It's a story called The Wedding Feast. So I experienced the version in Stephen Fry's mythos. So Stephen Fry is
yes.
apparently
I know
kind of like a big old nerd about
I believe
Greek
that.
mythology. And he did this really, really excellent retelling. I listened to the audiobook, which he narrates, which is just phenomenal.
Oh, so I would not.
Yeah, so I would
expect it.
highly, highly recommend this. I have another one later that is also kind of like a retelling of Greek myths in modern tongue, and it's just such a great way to get them. In both cases, the authors are really, really, as far as I can tell, diligent to the source material, but they add so much character that just isn't present in the original text. So so that's the version of it that this is based on. So this is sort of a be careful what you wish for parable, and also a why things in the world are the way they are parable.
Okay.
So there was a feast held in honor of the double wedding of Zeus and Hera. I think everyone should know that Zeus is the king of the gods
Yes,
in ancient
and
Greek. And then
the wife he cheated on multiple times with.
yeah, many times. And then also of Hephaestus and Aphrodite. So 2 weddings.
Yep.
So big old party. So Zeus issued a challenge. I should say that not just gods were invited to this party. Mortals, animals, everybody. So Zeus issued a challenge, and whoever brought the best dish to the feast could request anything of him. So, Stephen Fry says, cakes, buns, biscuits, soups. There's 2 minutes of
He's
this.
so British.
Yeah. So ultimately, so they try them all. The winner, however, was a small creature called Melissa, who brought a small amphora, so a little drinking goblet, filled with an amber goo she called honey. And so in this version of the myth cycle, honey was not something that was discovered that existed in the world. Mm-hmm. So she was the first. So they try this honey. They're blown away by how sweet and floral and delicate and how reminiscent it is of flowers and yada yada. So, so Zeus and Hera declare Melissa the winner, and so she has the right to request whatever she wants of them. So she explains that honey is very hard to make and time consuming, and that many creatures come and steal it. And that's a problem because she has to make it all by herself. So she asks for, and I quote, a weapon, a fatal one, that she can use to defend herself. She points out that scorpions and snakes don't even make food, and yet are given defense mechanisms like venomous fangs and poisonous stingers, which is a fair point. It's kind of the wasp argument.
No, first of all, at least tarantulas and scorpions at least kill other things that annoy us, like mosquitoes. Like spiders kill mosquitoes. I like that.
Wasps do nothing.
Wasps do
useful.
nothing but be angry at everybody.
Yeah. So, despite the fact that I find this to be a fairly reasonable request, it makes Zeus pretty peeved. So
Of course he is.
he like gets all vengeful at her about it. So he grants her a hive of workers over which she will be the queen, so that honey can be made more easily. So
I see where this is going.
yes, that explains bees. So he also grants her a weapon, a barbed stinger, which can harm other creatures, but is fatal to her, not to them.
Yes.
So it's one of those, like, be careful. It's not even be careful how you wish for, or what you wish for. It's be careful how you word what you wish for.
Exactly.
So this explains kind of why bee stings are fatal to them. And it also explains where honey and mead come from, because Zeus then blesses the amphora so that it never runs out. And when you drink or eat the stuff, the honey, it bestows immortality and turns into the food and drink of the gods. So immortality in Greek is called ambrosia.
Yep.
So that's where that word comes from.
Yep.
And then in its fermented form, they called it nectar. We would call it mead.
Yes.
So basically, yeah, this explains to the Greeks the kind of invention, quote unquote, of both honey and mead. And there are some interesting little science tidbits. The honeybees species designation is, I don't read Latin well, but Apis mellifera, which is named after Melissa. And then the order of insects, which includes the honeybee, is Hymenoptera, which means wedding wings, which is also based on this myth. So I thought that was kind of fun. Yeah.
First of all, I'm going to say all these beings and creatures come, and they probably have these like really fancy, cool names, and then
Melissa.
walks in.
No, there was another creature that had like a similar, her name was, it's like a goose named Cheryl or something like that. Some of them had some, yeah. They weren't all like uber Greek.
But no, that's actually a really cool story, because like I do know a decent amount of Greek mythology. I did not realize that that's how bees were created and everything else. Now I'm mad at Zeus because then he decided to make wasp and grant them an infinite amount of stinging.
What a jerk face, right? What was he thinking? Wasps and scorpions, but he can't give the honeybees any love.
I know, right? Jeez. Oh, man. All right. So, my next one, we're going to travel back to Mesopotamia.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We're going way back. 2500 BC. So, this story is based upon the fact that it was safer to drink beer than it was to drink the water at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So,
this water was icky.
yes. So, going through my notes here. So, we have a goddess called Ninkasi. And there's a hymn named after her. Ninkasi is the tutelary goddess of beer in ancient Sumerian religious mythology. Furthermore, she is the goddess of alcohol. She was also born of sparkling fresh water. She is the goddess made to satisfy the desire and sate the heart. She would prepare the beverage daily for everybody. That was
number one best god.
I'm about to say, yes. So, it's not really a whole lot.
It's interesting that, like, being the goddess of alcohol, she was also the goddess of, like, fresh water. It really shows, like, what a role alcohol played in just, like, making things safe.
Exactly, yeah, because you have to pretty much boil the water to make it clean. So, like, you have to make it safe anyways to make beer. So,
or you just booze it up to kill all the nasties.
I mean, that's true, yeah. Depending on how strong you want to make it. But her story can also be traced all the way back to almost 3500 BC with this hymn of hers. So probably one of the oldest stories as far as I'm aware. I know.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, I know like Mesopotamia generally.
Mesopotamia, Sumeria are very, very old.
Pretty beginning of recorded history.
Yes. So. Let's see here.
Are you going to recite this poem?
I'm going to give a little bit. It's hard to like really find it translated. So.
Oh no! Give us the untranslated version.
The hymn instructs readers and listeners to handle the dough with a shovel, mix with sweet aromatics, honey, and grains, soak the malt in a jar, and filter it in the vat. The end result was not just any beer; it was a beer comparable to the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, bringing life and enlightenment to those who partook in it.
Wow.
I know, right?
Dude, I wonder if, that'd be kind of a fun thing to make. It's like the ancient, Mesopotamian, earliest alcohol recipe in all the world.
Yeah. That would be fun to make because it sounds like it's not quite mead, it's not quite beer, it's the mix of the two. So
yeah. So I actually had I have it on my maybe someday we'll read list, but there's a book that I found called Ancient Brews Rediscovered and Recreated. Ooh. And I wonder if that book covers this.
Maybe
poem.
It does, yeah.
Because that would be pretty cool. That's pretty. Sorry, is there more or?
Nope. That is. It's not really like an epic journey. Getting
the poem is more or less a recipe. Yeah.
Yes. But it was interesting to see because it's something that I've been interested in is finding because we already know Bacchus, I can't remember his name right now.
Bacchus.
Bacchus, yeah, I was right. Being the god of wine, wine in general, and also being also insanity. Actually, I was very surprised by that
and stuff. Yeah.
But there wasn't really a goddess or god of beer. No one had beer, so it's nice to see there was a goddess of beer, and also just apparently being drunk.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's my next one.
All right, so we are going to take a hard right-hand turn from these first three legends to discuss a way more modern legend. This concerns the classic rock / metal band Pantera.
All right, okay, all
right. So we're going way more towards modern here. So fans of classic rock and metal are probably familiar with Pantera. And specifically, one of their Metalhead.
Metalhead, yeah. You can't.
Are probably familiar with the track "Cemetery Gates." It's one of their most popular songs. So in addition to just being generally regarded as a very well-regarded song, kind of online they called it a ballad. I don't really buy that, but it's it's a pretty epic, kind of slower metal song, but it still goes real hard. But in particular, the guitar solo is considered a masterpiece. So I took guitar lessons for a long time, and I used to really like to learn sort of guitar leads, fast guitar, and I would often reference this article from Guitar World magazine that was entitled "The 100 Greatest Guitar Solos of All Time Ranked." So this is a heavy focus on classic rock on this list, but. So it's a bit biased, but however, this solo ranked number 35. So number 35 greatest solo of all time. So it was played by the Pantera lead guitarist, Dimebag Darrell, rest in peace. He was actually murdered on stage, not too long ago. Yeah, it was kind of a tragic thing, but that's not really the focus of this. There's a really, really great story about how the solo was recorded. That is something of an urban legend, even though it has been more or less confirmed by an interview that he gave. It's just sort of one of those something can be true and still kind of be a legend that is sort
that's
of
how legends start. They were
that's sort of talked about. But so I'm just gonna let the man himself say it in his own words. We'll put a little voice on it just because I think it's just funny the way he says this, but. So I got home with a pretty good buzz on, picked up my axe, turned on the 4-track, cranked it loud as hell with the loose buzz theory that anything and everything goes, and just played it. I played 3 solos back to back, didn't bother listening to him, crashed out, not so happy. The next morning I woke up, I presume here, with a major hangover, thinking I had a lot of work to do. I almost started from scratch, then I decided to slow down and listen. So I fired up the 4-track, put my ears on, and bam! Lo and behold, there it was. The first lead I played the night before was it for sure. So I just love it. He says, hey man, second and third weren't bad, but the first had that first take magic. I didn't even touch it. So basically, he just reading between the lines, this is probably their most famous song, definitely his most famous guitar solo of all time. And he just got home trashed from a night of partying and went, what the heck, let's record. Turned on his 4-track and on the first recording just nailed note for note one of the most famous solos of all time. Wow. I think it's a great story. It's so
amazing.
Metal.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's a wonderful story.
That is an amazing story.
He didn't exactly save, all of humanity, but Still, props go out to the man.
Yes. Your voice was, I think, spot on too.
I hope so.
I'm pretty sure.
I've never actually heard him talk. But I was just fitting a voice to the paragraph of words I was given, and I was like,
you about to say, he kind of said like.
If this was recreated by an actor, I feel like this is about what they would affect.
Oh well, with that note, that's a great segue into a break for us, because I'm getting close to needing a new beer, and I think you need a refill on your
Mine's
taster.
all the way gone.
You have a much smaller glass than me. Shut your face.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just saying, I am in desperate need of another beer.
But let's take a quick break. We'll feed for real beers, and we'll be back. Cheers.
Cheers.
One heist, 6 plots for betrayal. When Raya Cautela cons 5 other thieves into helping her steal a magical artifact from the most powerful man in the world, she knows she's playing with fire. What she doesn't know is that the rest of her crew is just as underhanded as she is, and they all have plans of their own. M.J. Kuhn's Among Thieves, a fantasy heist novel full of twists, turns, and betrayal, available beginning September 7th wherever books are sold. Visit mjkuhn.com for more details.
Hi there, I'm David.
And I'm Kate.
And we're the hosts of another Zelda podcast.
There are so many good podcasts out there, and some of them in particular concern The Legend of Zelda.
That's right, Kate, and we are another one of them. That is actually the name of our show, Another
Yes.
Zelda Podcast.
And in our show in particular, we talk about some of our favorite dungeons, characters, boss battles. We have top 10 lists.
Yeah, we do deep dives on game design and production aspects of the different Zelda games.
And we talk about our own experiences. We do some review episodes, talk about our challenges, our struggles, and our victories.
That's right. Really just almost anything that has to do with Zelda, we like to talk about it. A new episode comes out every other Friday, and you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and YouTube.
And you can also check out our episodes on our website, anotherzeldapodcast.com.
That's right. All right, we will see you there.
Okay, bye!
All right, and we are back, and I think we're doing well enough on time that I think we can commit to just getting through all 8. Would you agree?
Let's do it.
All right, awesome. Well, Ryan, I'm going to hand it back off to you. It's your turn. Is this going to be set in the ancient past, or is it going to be set in the days of metal?
Definitely not the days of metal, but not that ancient. We are going to go to Christianity with this one. We all know Jesus turned water to wine, but imagine the parlor trick here that I have of turning bathwater to beer.
This is a biblical story?
This is a saint, one of the saints that we have in Catholicism.
Is he an Irish saint?
She is an Irish saint, actually.
Oh, is she? Excuse me.
So it's Catholic Saint Brigid. Her abbey, the first coven in Ireland. It was visited.
Nailed it. I knew it.
Was visited by a cadre of cardinals who were owed every hospitality, apparently including open bar, because they do drink. When the abbey's kegs ran dry, Brigid told the other nuns to dip their pitchers into a nearby bathtub and serve the men the water. Reluctantly, they agreed and were amazed to find out that the water turned to beer by the time it touched their lips.
Wow.
She then pulled the same
Hopefully
trick.
it was fresh bath water.
She then again pulled the same trick with members of a leper colony that she was looking after. When the men complained that they had no food, Brigid blessed the bathtub, and the water became a hearty beer for the men to drink. And then finally, it has been said that 1 barrel of beer that she sent to a neighboring town was able to fill 17 more barrels the same size.
Whoa.
And there is a myth rumor going around that she, being Irish, she had Celtic Druid abilities going along with it, which is where this ability came from.
Interesting. That's a pretty... So it's almost like the water into wine parable mixed with the Sermon on the Mount, where one basket of fish and bread fed every... I think that's the Sermon on the Mount.
I do have a way,
feeds everybody.
I do have a way to maybe beat this legend, especially the first one. They were able to drink.
It's not
and
a
drink
competition,
and drink.
Ryan.
I know, but I'm not saying like I'm not.
Okay.
What I'm saying is I might have an explanation of why it worked.
Okay.
Especially for the first part. So they drank and ran out of beer. So they told them it was more beer.
This is definitely beer.
This is definitely beer. Oh my god, it's so good. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's beer. Wow.
I can just imagine a whole group of cardinals just passed out drinking bathwater, thinking they're just like, oh yeah, more beer.
That's pretty amazing.
But yeah, no, I thought that was a great story. I saw that one. I'm like, of course, it's an Irish Catholic saint that would do this exact thing. There was no other person, no one else that could do this. I don't know what she's the saint of, but I want to find the necklace that
beer.
All right, what do you got for us? We got more guitar riffs going on?
No, well, so I think I'm gonna save my original third one for last because it's my favorite. It might be my favorite myth of all time.
Okay.
It's another ancient one. So I'm gonna instead do my bonus one first. So this is not really a myth per se. This all started when I was trying to look up. I was thinking about the Indiana Jones Marion bar scene where Marion has to outdrink that guy in a contest of shots, and I was like, I wonder if there's a historical backbone for that. Why did that become a way to settle disputes? And then later, I couldn't find anything, and later it was just sort of I bet literally every culture eventually invented a drinking contest. It doesn't take that much imagination.
Drinking, in Indiana Jones, where they literally just go back and forth.
Yeah,
who drinks.
I can drink more than you is the simplest drinking game ever. So
I'm picturing Gimli and Legolas now in the extended version.
Cross Lord of the Rings off the Brewthers-In-Law bingo.
Is that one on the bingo? I think that's first.
I think it should be.
It should be.
We've now brought it up in both episodes we've recorded today. But so while doing research, however, for that inspiration, I found reference to the oldest recorded drinking game from 4th and 5th century BC, ancient Greece. It's called I guess it's called Kottabos, Kottabos. Kottabos?
Kottabos? I'll go with that.
I'm trying not to be too big of a Michigander and call it Kottabos.
Kottabos.
So Kottabos is the oldest recorded drinking game and best understood as a combination of horseshoes and a chugging contest.
You have my attention.
This messy drinking game involves flinging dregs, the sediment left over from unfiltered wine, across a room. The room where the game was played, so they had a chamber to play this game in, was called an andron. And so the players would lounge on a pillow situated around the room, pillowed couches situated around the room, and quickly chug wine from specialized bowls. Shallow bowls with 2 handles. It was designed to facilitate the throwing of the dregs across the room. Supposedly, the throwing technique was akin to the motion of throwing a frisbee. And then basically their goal was to knock down a disc that was balanced on a metal rod. So they're literally flinging the liquid dregs of their wine glass, trying to knock down. It's basically horseshoes meets frisbee meets a chugging contest.
Wow.
And it sounds so ridiculous. And apparently, so I'm getting this off ChristopherStewart.com. So I guess just props to my reference. But there was another one. Okay, I just read something funny that I'm going to read in a minute. But there's another one, another reference that I read the other day that just said often, the players' best clothes, their togas or whatever, would just be completely stained with red wine, and just completely ruins their clothes because you're just chug and then fling.
Yeah.
But it just sounds like so much fun.
It does. Laundry would suck the next day, but whatever.
But also, I guess, again, content warning. To complicate the game, players would also bet on who would win, and prizes for winning varied from pastries to sexual favors. And this, by the way,
ancient Greece
was a male-only game, so,
Also not surprised.
Yeah, no, not surprised, but yeah, I just thought that was kind of a funny little tidbit. So it apparently originated in Sicily and then grew in popularity across the Mediterranean and in Greece. So that's the oldest drinking game in recorded history, and I think that sounds pretty insane. And
I would
also
make different bets. But
also kind of
personally
fun.
myself-
Yeah, also kind of fun.
Yes. I don't know. I'm going to top that one. All right. So my last one is the story that I pitched this to you. So you know the story.
Yeah, but I don't remember it super well. So
Okay. So.
I'll act surprised.
So, if you travel back in time to the Middle Ages or the Renaissance and went to a market in England, you'd probably see an oddly familiar sight. Women wearing tall, pointy hats. In many instances, they'd be standing in front of a big cauldron, but these women were not witches. They were actually brewers.
What?
They wore tall, pointy hats so that their customers could see them in the crowded marketplaces. They transported their brew in cauldrons, and those who sold their beer out of stores had cats as not as demon familiars, but to keep mice away from the grain. Some argue that all this stuff is associated with witches from the pointed hats and everything else. But this goes back to women trying to get a foothold in brewing back in England. England and Ireland and the rest of Europe, and the Reformation then began. So religious movement, which originated in the early 16th century, preached stricter gender norms and condemned witchcraft. Male brewers saw an opportunity, which I feel nothing for them. So, to reduce their competition in the beer trade, they accused female brewers of being witches and using their cauldrons to brew up magic potions instead of beer. Unfortunately, the rumors stuck. Over time, it became more dangerous for women to practice brewing and sell beer because they could be misidentified as witches. At the time, being accused of witchcraft wasn't just a social faux pas. It could result in prosecution or a death sentence. Obviously, as we know in our past.
What?
Yeah.
Witches
Women
got the death sentence? Who'd have thunk?
Women accused of witchcraft were often ostracized from their communities, imprisoned, or even killed. Some men didn't really believe that the women brewers were witches. However, many did believe that women shouldn't be spending their time making beer. The process took time and dedication, hours to prepare the ale, sweep the floors clean, and lift heavy bundles of rye and grain. If women couldn't brew ale, they would have significantly more time at home to raise their children. The eye roll you
Eye
hear.
roll, yeah. I'm sorry. We're not live on video, so eye roll. We'll just say it out loud.
In the 1500s, some towns such as Chester, England, actually made it illegal for most women to sell beer, worried that the young alewives would grow up into old spinsters. Now, granted, 1500s,
This is so frustrating.
1500s, it is way back there, but
This
story
is unsurprising, fascinating, and just deeply frustrating.
Yes, exactly.
It's fascinating though to think that like so many norms about like what we consider like witch stuff came from brewers though.
Yeah.
That is absolutely fascinating.
And also fascinating that capitalism was alive back in the 1500s. So, because that's such a capitalistic move right there.
Yeah.
Oh, my beer is not selling well. There's this. Witches.
Witches!
I'm just going to go up to random home brewers and be like, you're witches.
Right,
Take
witches.
them.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's really fascinating.
Yeah.
Like the extent to which all of like you said, the iconography just sort of lines up perfectly.
Yeah. The hats, the cats, cauldron, everything. Like, it's. I wonder if, because like, I know a little bit about the witchcraft and obviously Wiccan a little bit, but like they were real. They weren't just all female brewers. They decided to be witches, and then witches grew from that. Like witchcraft was being called something, and then I feel like these male brewers are like, let's just call them witches. Okay, let's do it, and let's put them in.
Or I wonder even like I'm not informed at all on this topic, but I wonder if like people later who got into like that sort of mystical stuff just sort of maybe. I mean, I don't even know if they adopted those kind of like symbols and like the dress and the cats and all that. Like, I don't know if they adopted it, but if they did, maybe it was just like those were the symbols associated with witches. So if you wanted to do something kind of witchy, then you sort of like, it's sort of like buying polos if you want to be a preppy kid. They're like, well, we got to walk the walk. We got to look right.
Yeah, I know. Let's say, yeah.
Man.
If you're going to be a brewer, do it right.
This, again, always begging the question whenever there's any sort of, like, weird repression like this. If that just hadn't happened and, you know, the market had just been able to dictate, like, who made the best beer, how much better beer could we be making today?
Right?
How much better beer? Okay, that is, I think, deeply fascinating. That's definitely the most historical, with the exception of my Pantera story.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah.
But that is really, really fascinating. Okay.
All right, what's your last
We're going
one?
to dive firmly
Intrigued.
back into myths for this one.
Yes.
This is a myth about Thor. So this is
my man.
Yeah, we're doing Norse myths. So again, I'll just say the kind of version that I'm narrating here, I experienced first via Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology, which I did on audiobook, which is also fantastic for the same reasons I talked about with Stephen Fry's Mythos. But I have also listened to, also on audiobook, the original source material, which is from the Poetic Edda, which is the version I read was translated by Jackson Crawford, but it's just a collection of these like kind of poems about like Norse mythology that provide, it's like the source material for a lot of what we know about the like Norse myths, basically. So both are good. If this stuff you find cool, I would highly recommend Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology. And if you just like can't get enough and or just like want to experience the original understanding, it's like obviously a bit like drier and you're missing some cultural context, do the original. That one was great too. So this story is called Heimir and Thor's Fishing Expedition. And I will caution, again, content warning, there's a little bit of just violence in this. So this is the basic. This is going to sound like I'm including a lot of detail. I cut many details out of this story. This story goes all over the place, okay? So, the gods, broadly, the Norse gods, all arrive at the home of the sea giants, and Thor demands a feast be thrown in their honor. The sea giants don't want trouble. They also don't want to throw the feast, really. They don't really like the gods. So, they promise a feast on the condition that the gods provide a cauldron large enough for them to brew ale for all of them. This has to be a very large cauldron because some of the gods have like some pretty ravenous appetites. So
Yes.
Thor is kind of perplexed. He asks around. Finally, he asks Tyr, the god of battle, who tells him that on the edge of the world sea lives the giant Heimir, who owns a cauldron 3 miles deep. The biggest cauldron in the world. It also turns out to be a magical cauldron that makes the best beer in the world. And according to Heimir later in the story, you can tell it to make beer and it will just make you the best beer in the world. So this sounds perfect. So Thor and Tyr travel together to Heimir's fortress. Heimir is out at the time. Since Thor is an enemy of the giants, he's introduced under a fake name. When Heimir comes home, his wife tells him they have guests and I quote, he needs to be a gracious host and not kill them. He replies, and I love this because I feel this way sometimes. He replies, I am grim of mind and wrathful of spirit, and I have no desire to be nice to anyone. Sometimes you're just grumpy, right? Nonetheless, Heimir shows the 3 guests some hospitality. He shows them 3 of his exceptional oxen, and he tells them they're the finest herd anywhere, and he loves them like his own children. Despite this, they then immediately kill and cook 3 of them. This is intended to be enough food to last them several days. However, he tells them they can eat as much as they want because they're tiny compared to him, and how much could they eat? Thor proceeds to eat 2 of the oxen completely by himself.
Of course he does.
So Thor then suggests that they go out fishing the next day and catch dinner. Heimir likes this idea. For the rest of the story, they sort of engage in kind of I'll call it a beard measuring contest with each other. Always trying to kind of mess with each other or show each other up. So the morning of the fishing expedition, Thor arrives at the edge of the sea and Heimir tells him, oh, bro, you didn't bring your own bait? You got to go find some bait. So he sends him to the fields, the oxen fields, to look for it. He basically tells him to like go and dig around in some cow dung to find maggots to use as bait. Thor goes to the field, walks right past all the cow pies, walks up to the finest ox in the herd, and punches it in the face, killing it. Then he rips its head off to use his head as bait. So once they get out to sea, man, Norse mythology is wild. Right?
It is.
Once they get out to sea, Hymir catches 2 enormous whales, the biggest whale Thor has ever seen. But Thor, using the ox head as bait, catches the Midgar Serpent, which is so large it encircles the entire world and like bites its own, tail or whatever. So this thing is giant. It's causing like storms and tsunamis and stuff while he's wrestling with it. He tries to kill it. Hymir is afraid they're going to die, so he cuts the line and the Midgar Serpent escapes. Then Thor carries the boat with the giant and both whales in it back to Hymir's place, and then as a boon asks for the brewing pot in return, because that, you will recall, was the whole point of the story, was he was looking for a brewing pot. Hymir says, still playing games, says he can have it if he can break Hymir's favorite drinking cup. So Thor takes the drinking cup, he chucks it at a marble column so hard the column shatters into dust, but the cup is totally unharmed. So eventually what happens is he breaks it by smashing it over Hymir's forehead. Because why not? So they get the brewing pot, which Thor carries all the way back despite its giant size. He flips it over and like pushes it out the door like a turtle shell, which just feels hilarious, especially if it's 3 miles deep. It's like the like scale of it just makes no sense at all. So they take the brewing pot back to the sea giant's house, and the sea giants honor their word and throw the feast, and this becomes a tradition yearly where the gods come to feast with the sea giants every fall after the harvest, and they drink the best beer in the world. And I have no idea if that like alludes to some kind of harvest festival that like Norse people threw or like had, but
Norse mythology is just...
It's bonkers,
random
right?
stories.
It's so bonkers.
Like with Greek and Roman, like you can like equate something. Like an event happens, like
there's like
we
a moral.
do this because of
there's
this.
There's a moral,
or there's a story to. Norse mythology is like, no, we had to survive. We needed this. We did this.
Yeah.
End of story.
Like I'm sure to their culture, like things made a lot more sense, but some of it is just
like,
wild.
The
like,
one thing that threw me off guard the first time I learned about this was the mascot of Thor is a goat.
Yeah.
It's a goat that never dies.
He's all about goats, yeah. His chariot is pulled by 2 goats.
Exactly, yeah.
That actually is a part of the story that I didn't even talk about, but this is a huge... So on audiobook, it's only like a half hour long, but it's just packed with these random...
Yeah.
Like, there are so many silly little... It's like an entire season of like a serialized TV show into one thing. There's so many little adventures.
I learned about this... It's like because he does this with a lot of his books, but like an off-brand story of that same story. There's an author called Rick Riordan. He does the Percy Jackson stories. He does a couple other ones. He did one based off Norse mythology called Magnus Chase, and it's a 3-book series. And that's how I knew about the talking goats. That's how I knew about actually the basis of this story, because he does bring in similarities of actual legend into more modern going on with this. So when you started telling the story, I'm like, yep. I kind of understood that he to help Thor, he had to do this to get the pot and everything.
Right.
So I didn't know
the
actual story of it, but I knew like the basis that he had to get a pot to make ale in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, okay. I knew that. That's the only part of the story I knew. I didn't know about fishing with an ox head.
Punching oxes in the face to death. But talk about metal. This is a pretty metal story too.
Oh my god, yeah, these are great stories.
Punched an ox in the face, ripped its head off, and used it to catch a giant snake bigger than the world.
Exactly, that wraps around the world. Oh jeez.
Metal hands.
Norse mythology.
Oh man. This was an absolute blast.
This was fun. Yeah.
This is a fun episode.
We might have to see if we can do more of these. We might have to dig into more legends.
Yeah. So that was the last one, right?
Yes, that was the last one. Yep. You got the last one.
Yeah, we may have to bring this back because this was a lot of fun. All right. Well, so we hope that you enjoyed that. I'll say right up front, before I tell you where to find us, that if you have any legends that you want to share, particularly brewing legends, we'd love to hear them, because I think Ryan and I both just thought that this stuff is just so fascinating.
I love to hear these stories. These are so great.
Whether they're historical, semi-historical, urban legends, myths, whatever. So if you want to hit us up with that, or questions or comments, you can find us at Brewthers-In-Law. That's Brewthers, in law, all one word, on Twitter. Also, Brewthers-In-Law.com if you'd like to find out more information about our show. And then in addition, Ryan, where else can people find you?
So I'm on Twitter. I'm at Rambo Kuhn and also at Wise Old Owls Brew. The latter is for anything related to brewing, but I do share pretty much everything altogether. And I'm also on TikTok with Wise Old Owls Brew as well, kind of talking about stories or videos of me brewing. Other fun videos that I put together as well with what would they drink of famous characters like Zoolander. He drinks Zima, for the record, because why not? But yeah, so you can definitely find us there. Let us know any legends that you have. Maybe not the legends that you have created, because they might be dangerous, and we don't want to put that out there for people. I don't need a jackass situation going on here. But do let us know of any other legends you have that you know of. You can reach out to us there. You can reach out to us wherever you listen to podcasts as well, at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or YouTube, wherever you listen. And I think that's it. We're going to call it a time, and we're definitely going to revisit this one. I'm game. All right. Until then, cheers.
Cheers to that.